Hey, yo, I want to talk about Marvel and Magic, and eventually, this recent article by Wizards of the Coast which is good news, bad news, neutral news. I somehow think it isn't any of those things. Weirdly, I think this is the Three Stooges trying to fit through a doorway news. Good if you're an arena player, which admittedly I'm not. Bad if you're a fan of the worlds of Magic, which admittedly I am. Good if you're a Marvel fan, which I guess I am. But bad if I don't want to be resentful of Marvel, which, Let me explain. In 2025, WotC put out a different statement in regards to how the cards for the new Spider-Man set would appear on Magic's digital client, Arena, after it was implied that WotC had only acquired the license to use Spider-Man's characters and IP in printings of physical paper cards. Now, the reason I say implied there is because, to my knowledge, WotC never actually admitted that they didn't have the license. If we go back to that article and zoom in, you'll see the wording in that 2025 statement says, "Every time we release a Universes Beyond set, we get a similar question. Is this going to be on Magic the Gathering Arena and Magic the Gathering Online? We've typically handled this on a set-by-set basis with an answer that has either been fully yes or demonstrably no. We'd love for the answer to always be yes, but sometimes things just don't work out that way. No explanation given as to why they don't work out that way, of course." And later in the article it goes on to say, "We will not be creating through the Omenpaths sets mirroring every Universes Beyond set, only the ones that will not be coming to digital platforms. This lets our formats remain mechanically at parity with one another digitally without having to create patchwork solutions here or there. We are also currently only planning to create through the Omenpath releases for full sets that are legal in all formats." Again, if there's an explanation as to why they won't be coming to digital platforms, then they've failed to mention it. Further on, one 2025 set, Magic the Gathering Marvel Spider-Man, as well as future Marvel sets, bear that in mind, will not be coming to digital Magic platforms. Instead, we will release our first Through the Omenpath set on September, and they say 23 instead of 23rd for reasons unknown. And if you're unfamiliar with what Through the Omenpaths even is, well, it's WotC's solution to this Universes Beyond predicament that they've created for themselves. In essence, WotC want external IPs in Magic because it makes them a lot of money. They will tell you it's because it brings in new players, but let's not kid ourselves. They care less about the player numbers than they do the profits. It was reported way back in April of 2025 that CEO of Hasbro, Chris B. Cox, was saying Final Fantasy already is the best-selling set of all time. And that's before its official release in June, where the players could actually get their hands on the set. Magic's head designer Mark Rosewater declared over on his blog that Spider-Man is one of the top 10 best-selling sets of all time, even though amongst the player base it really didn't seem to do that well, to the point that stores were having to offer massive discounts just to try and shift it off of shelves. And Mark Rosewater has openly acknowledged that new players aren't the primary purchasers of Universes Beyond anyway. So with all that combined, it appears that WotC's metric for success isn't player numbers, but is in fact rather just sales. But how can Magic be selling so well if it's not due to people buying the product to play with it? Well, that's due to multiple depressing factors that I don't have time for today. But regardless, WotC want Universes Beyond because it makes money. However, we know thanks to Mark Rosewater again that Spider-Man did in fact transition from a small set to a medium-sized set, if I had to speculate, as a knee-jerk reaction after seeing the apparent failure of the equally small Assassin's Creed set. And we know that WotC had announced Universes Beyond was going to be legal in all formats. If I had to speculate again, as a knee-jerk reaction to both the declining popularity of Standard and the continued backlash to format-warping non-standard design sets like Modern Horizons. Which means that, this small Spider-Man supplementary set has found itself in the unenviable position of having to turn a profit, whilst suddenly transitioning to an unplanned full standard legal release. Meaning first, it needs to now be a fun set for limited environments. Second, it needs to include enough cards to warrant its legality and price. Third, the included cards need to have some sort of impact on at least Standard. And fourth, it now needs to appear on Arena. So what do WotC seemingly do? Solution for number one? Don't worry about the limited environment. Who cares if some people think the set isn't fun or that there are too many legendaries or it's weird and unbalanced to draft? We're WotC, as long as we can tell the shareholders it's sold, then we're golden. Solution for number two? If there's not enough cards in the set, just pack it with random spaff. How about a hot dog cart? What about a helicopter? What about a pigeon? Are any of these things Magic? Are any of these things even Spider-Man? Bagel and Schmear says we're in New York, buddy, so forget about it. Solution for number three, I actually can't speak on. I quit Standard a while back now, and I will not be chasing any of these Spider-Man cards, so let me know in the comments if any of these are actually chasing anyway. Are they or were they ever relevant? In fairness, maybe WotC knocked it out of the park with this one. I can't say either way. But solution for number 4, this set now needs to be on Arena. Well, as they said, for whatever reason, WotC weren't able to make that happen. It's speculated this is due to licensing problems, probably as Marvel already had a digital card game. But I'd further speculate it's probably more to do with time. This decision to turn Spider-Man into a full set seemed very last minute, and whether Disney would be okay or not with another digital card game depicting Marvel characters is less relevant than the fact that even finding that out would require filing legal paperwork, arranging business meetings, setting up a contract, entering rights negotiations, etc, etc. And all of that takes time that WotC just didn't have at that point, I imagine, because the set already had a release date. And it seems it needed to be unexpectedly ready for Arena basically there and then. Enter Through the Omenpaths, which is ridiculous when you take a step back. Because once you want to release a new set on Arena, but for whatever reason can't use external IPs to do it, so their solution is, just don't use the external IP then, and make regular Magic cards instead. But WotC seemed to be so in the weeds with this idea that Magic is unappealing, its lore isn't good enough to stand on its own or interesting enough to attract new players without outside help, that they had to repackage the concept of, how about we use our own characters and lore on these cards as Through the Omenpaths? As if what if a Magic card featured Magic characters was some brand new revelation. Madness. But on the plus side, it meant that the people who are fans of Magic's IP, because it's kind of cool actually, were given a whole bunch of new and interesting cards. Are they technically just reskins of Spider-Man cards? I guess, but many people, myself included, think these Magic versions are actually superior. Sorry, I mean these versions are mind-bitten? With the poster child for this Magic first sentiment being Fleam. People love Fleam because obviously, look at him. But these cards were digitally exclusive, which of course led to the inevitable. People started wanting to have these preferable versions printed in paper, so that they could, trade and collect the cards, a desire that seems natural for players of a collectible trading card game. But in response to this request, when asked if WotC have any plans to release the Through the Omenpaths versions of Spider-Man in paper, head designer Mark Rosewater said, "We do not." Why not? Well, he goes into more detail as to why in another response. The concern is it won't sell well. The audience that refuses to play with Universes Beyond cards is pretty low. That doesn't mean we won't reprint individual cards, but a whole set is currently seen as a bit too risky. Which is such a backwards way of looking at things. As if the only people that would buy a set like that are the ones that refuse to play with Universes Beyond cards. Are the only people who bought Final Fantasy people who refuse to play with in-universe cards? No, of course not. Strixhaven did pretty well for itself without having to be a Harry Potter tie-in. Was that only purchased by people who refuse to play with Universes Beyond cards? And if you're thinking the reason those sets worked but a paper Omenpaths set wouldn't, is because it wouldn't have new cards and would only consist of reskinned Spider reprints, I'd remind you core sets used to sell pretty well, Foundation seemed to do pretty well, and those are mostly reprints. Hell, remastered sets are nothing but reprints, and those are apparently desirable enough that WotC feel they can charge a premium for them. So I think the notion that a Through the Omenpaths paper set wouldn't sell because the audience that refuses to play with Universes Beyond cards is pretty low is nonsense. And until recently, I was of the belief that the real reason WotC didn't want to print paper versions of the Spider-Man set wasn't that it wouldn't make any money, but instead because it wouldn't make all the money in the world. Which, while kind of dumb, I can at least understand. See, it costs money for WotC to print a new set, but they don't mind expending that money for a new set because each time they do, they're taking a gamble. A new Lord of the Rings set is worth the expense because it could be the best-selling set of all time. A new Final Fantasy set is worth the expense because it could be the best-selling set of all time. But an in-universe set of reprints from a set I would speculate already wasn't that popular with the player base. Well, it would probably make some money. Clearly there's at least some demand for it as people are asking, to a point that I even bet the set would be profitable. And in my opinion, more importantly, I bet it would keep all those Universes Beyond naysayers happy. The audience that refuses to play with Universes Beyond cards is pretty low, but not non-existent, and if WotC could turn a profit while pleasing them, it would make business sense to do it. But a set like that probably wouldn't make all the money in the world, and so WotC don't want to take the gamble or think it's worth the cost. Why invest a little bit for something that only has the potential to give small returns? And that was my logic as to why WotC wouldn't take what I believe to be an easy win in the eyes of the players by just printing these cards. But Magic the Gathering Marvel Superheroes comes to MTG Arena the 19th of May 2026, and if we scroll down, we're thrilled to announce that Magic the Gathering Marvel Superheroes and all past and future Marvel sets will be coming to MTG Arena. That means MTG Arena fans will get to experience the full breadth of this release, with all the bells and whistles expected from any other Magic release on MTG Arena. And you may be thinking, wait, what? But I thought they said, well, scroll down again. Starting June 16, 2026, Magic the Gathering Marvel Spider-Man will be available on MTG Arena. Which is good for Arena players, because if you love Spider-Man, you now get to have both versions of the card on Arena. They explain, how do I continue to use my Through the Omenpaths cards? Since Through the Omenpaths cards are becoming card styles, they work like any other card style. You can tap or drag the card style directly into your deck to apply it or set it as your preferred printing to use as the default version across the client, which is excellent. I, for one, would want the Magic version to be the default version, and this gives players that option. But here's my issue. I do not believe for 1 second that WotC were able to get these Spider-Man cards on Arena at no cost to themselves, once you factor in legal fees and licensing deals. It is Disney we're talking about after all. But presumably now that the Spider-Man set has been and gone, the potential for it to make all the money has also already been and gone. So I assume WotC must be doing this just to keep their Arena players happy. But if WotC are willing to do something that has less of a chance to generate massive profit just so Arena players can collect and play with every version of the cards, why aren't they willing to do that for the paper players too? Where's the Omenpaths paper announcement? Also, remember Fleam? Some people liked Through the Omenpaths. Some even preferred those versions to the original. But if we read this section of the article right here, we'll also note that there won't be an equivalent Through the Omenpaths set for this release. Magic the Gathering Marvel Superheroes and all future Marvel sets will be released on MTG Arena with the full flavour of the Marvel Universe. So again, another thing I do not believe is that WotC weren't prepared for whatever this new deal is not to go through or be ready yet. I would bet money that there's artists out there who are hired to make in-universe art for a potential Marvel Superheroes Through the Omenpaths set. I'm saying I bet the cards already exist. WotC are just choosing not to give them to us. And while if you remember they only said, one 2025 set Magic the Gathering Spider-Man, as well as future Marvel sets will not be coming to digital Magic platforms, instead we will release our first Through the Omenpaths set on September 23, we'll have more information on that set as we get closer to the release date, which isn't the same as promising that Marvel Superheroes would definitely have a Through the Omenpaths equivalent. It at least certainly feels like that was very much the plan, or at least a possibility that this new announcement has stamped out. Ultimately, I'm saying, this Spider-Man section is good for Arena players as they get to have their choice of both the in-universe and external IP versions of the cards, but for the same reasoning, this Marvel Superhero section is bad for Arena players because it's now been confirmed that they won't be given that same choice. And I just can't understand why. WotC approving in one instance that it is possible for them to keep every Arena player happy, but then denying that possibility in the next. And worst of all for people like me, all of this still only applies to Arena and we still aren't getting any Through the Omenpaths cards in paper regardless, which is something I for one would like to see. One of the things I hear a lot from the defenders of Universes Beyond that it's just an extra, it isn't taking away from Magic, but I think this announcement potentially proves that argument wrong. It seems from the outside that WotC planned to make in-universe versions of these upcoming Marvel cards, and then found a way out of having to do that. Which sucks, because I like Magic the Gathering. I want more in-universe cards. And if Through the Omenpaths versions of these sets lead to fun designs like Fleam, then I'm all for it. But that definitely isn't happening now, whereas previously it seemed it was. Meaning this may be the first instance of an entire in-universe Magic set getting cancelled in favour of a Universes Beyond one. I would have to assume halfway through production too. And if that's the case, then kind of fuck Marvel. I'm not here to play Marvel the Gathering. So I hope I'm wrong about all of this because otherwise I'm going to really resent these cards. But what do you guys think? The reaction I've mostly seen to this announcement seems to be positive. And I kind of get it. I think there was a possibility that WotC could have said, We now have the license to put Spider-Man on Arena, so we're going to delete all existing Omenpaths versions. But they didn't do that. However, not doing the worst thing isn't the same as doing something good. A lack of bad news doesn't equate to good news, especially given that a lot of this statement sounded like bad news to me. Like this section here says, the first time you log in after the update on June 16, all unopened through the Omenpath packs will automatically be opened. But what's that about? I can't imagine why, but if someone has a pack and has chosen not to open it, I assume it must be for a reason, but it appears WotC don't care about your sealed collection, so screw you, I guess. Reading this article as a paper player left me feeling like we've lost out on something that could have been cool. Because that's what these Through the Omenpath cards were. They were cool. And now not only are they not coming to paper, but they're not even going to exist anymore in the first place. However, Mark Rosewater has said that he's looking for feedback for the Spider-Man set on his blog. So link below if you want to tell him to either continue through the Omenpaths or print the existing ones in paper. Or both. Because the gathering is important in Magic, and if you agree, then maybe collectively we can make our voices heard. #Justice for Fleam. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like 27 publications, Eggboy the Particle that permeates all existence, Blank Space, Wanpako Jozu, Miss Murder, a random Patreon, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen. Now, I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, proxy every Through the Omenpath cards if they won't print them, I guess. And most importantly, subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know, and I will see you next time.